Teachers, what was the trashiest thing you've seen a parent do? Story 1. Staff raise money to get an 8-year-old girl a winter coat, lives in rural Canada. The girl came to school the next day in a t-shirt in the winter, her mom wearing the brand new child-sized jacket. Edit. The principal confronted her about it, and the mom told her to f*** off, and that anything her kids owned belonged to her, and she could do what she wanted with it. Children's Aid was called, and that student lives with a very nice foster family now. Mother was rail thin, and she looked like the stereotypical junkie archetype. The sleeves were 3 inches too short, didn't cover most of her stomach, and she could do it up properly. Story 2. Work at a school where over 80% of our population lives under the poverty line. I keep a cabinet full of hygiene products for kids to take. Deodorant, lotion, chapstick, hair gel, feminine hygiene products, shampoo, conditioner, those kind of things in travel sizes. Being a teen is hard enough without having to cope with hygiene problems due to a lack of funds at home. So one day, the entire thing is empty. Odd, I refill the cabinet, and 2 days later, all of it is gone again. Refill with the last of my supplies, and catch the kid in the act of sweeping everything in his bag. I stop him, take him to the other room, and talk to him. He told his mother about the cabinet. She ordered him to bring her everything he could get. She was returning the items to Walmart for store credit to buy cigarettes and beer. I told him to tell her the cabinet is locked now since I bought a bike lock, so it was not a lie. It is sickening. Edit. The lock was only on until the student left. It has been on the honor system for 15 years with over 1,700 students, and only one incident. I call that a good record. I added feminine hygiene products early on to the cabinet when I found out that the nurse charged 50 cents for them and refused to let girls take one on credit. Story 3. The woman I used to babysit for worked in a school as an assistant, or some in Toronto. She always told this story about how the class rabbit would go home with a new kid each weekend. They kept trying to avoid giving one kid the bunny for the weekend because it was clear his home life wasn't the best. But they finally caved and let him take the rabbit home. The parents killed the rabbit and ate it. They did that to the class bunny and fried it up for dinner and weren't even ashamed when they told the teacher what happened on Monday. Said they were out of groceries or something. Ooh, what a shocking and upsetting story that is. It's heartbreaking to think that the class rabbit, meant to bring joy and teach responsibility to the children, ended up suffering such a terrible fate. It's concerning that the parents felt no remorse for their actions, and it must have been difficult for the teacher and students to process what had happened. Story 4. I volunteer at after-school programs to help tutor. I had a student earlier this year who was a good kid and loved math and computers and had a desire to be a programmer when he grows up. But he was really struggling in 7th grade because he had no computer at home. We had to do his online assignments at the program, but we only met twice a week. I pulled his mom aside and explained how he could be doing much better in school with some kind of PC and internet access at home, but she says she can't afford a computer. I told her that for $200, I could piece all the parts together myself for a fully functional setup that would be sufficient for at least the next few years. I'd even build it with him so he could learn some extremely valuable information. I'd front her half, but she'd have to pay me back. She says, no way, still way out of her budget. Mind you, while we're having this conversation, she's barely looking up to speak to me, too busy scrolling through the Instagram on her iPhone X. I say, fuck it, I'll do it myself. Scrap together all the parts I can for free. I only had to buy an HDD. The setup was really out of date, but still worked, but the kid was thrilled. About a month later, I noticed he was trying to finish all his homework at the program again. I asked my mom if everything is okay with the computer when she says it broke down. I say, fine, what happened? I'll pick it up and try to fix it, but she says she had to throw it away. So I pull the kid aside and ask him, and he tells me she sold it to her cousin for $50. I really don't like calling people trashy when they're apparently stuck in a culture of poverty. Maybe she needed that $50 for the light bill or groceries. But at the same time, she spends 3 times that amount on her cell phone each month. So it really just broke my heart. It was like she was doing everything in her power to ensure the kid has no chance at a decent life. Story 6. Well, in my profession, it's more often what the parents don't do that wins them the Parent of the Year award. But I do have a couple of Hall of Famers. I'm a special education teacher, so I deal with kids with all kinds of physical, emotional, and academic disabilities. I took care of a little girl once who had a number of complications due to spina bifida. Her mother couldn't be bothered to take care of her. The little girl wore diapers and was cashed. She required 3 to 5 diaper changes a day. Mom would only send 5 diapers a week. The thing is, she was getting full services from her community, so she was being provided with plenty of supplies. We suspect Mom was probably selling the extras. I ended up just buying her diapers. Mom would not change her catheter regularly. We would change her out at school, but other than that, she'd go another 24 hours before a change out, longer if it was a weekend. The smell from the infections she'd get after a weekend was horrendous. She had lice constantly and oozing bedbug sores. Mom told us to F off when we call and tell her to take her to a doctor. Found out later in the year that she also had scabies. We offered to administer the medications and creams at school. Mom told us to go to hell. Girls would come to school in men's underwear, XXL shirts, and size 16 pants. She was 8. Finally discovered that her 9-year-old sister was changing her diapers and dressing her every day, and her sister couldn't find any other cleanish clothes to put on her. Mom responds, "I'm busy. I have to get to work in the mornings." The final straw was when the nurse discovered what appeared to be STD warts while changing her diaper one day. The nurse made, for the 10th time, another CPS report, but the principal insisted that we call home and report our findings. Grandma found out, tipped off Mom, and Mom appeared at the school 15 minutes later, snatched up the kids, and disappeared. Investigators showed up 15 minutes later, but Mom was already long gone. Never saw the kids again. Reply 1. You'd be amazed at the number of CPS reports, both on that child and others, that have been almost entirely ignored. The most traction we ever got from that case was a caseworker going out to the house, reporting, "Yep, it's a filthy hole," and then mailing their findings in and closing the case. When we found warts, the initial reporter we talked to said, "She probably got them from Mom when she was born, NBD." We've been changing her diaper for a year and a half and have never found outbreaks before now. Story 7. I'm not a teacher, but my mother is. It was her birthday, and I live 3 hours away from her. I drove to my parents' house unannounced to surprise her for her birthday. She was obviously working, as it was school hours, so I drove to the school she works at just as they were finishing. I was heading to the staff room, which is behind the reception area. I was about to announce myself to the receptionist and ask to wait for Mom in the staff room, when this angry as dad storms in. He was abusing the out of the poor receptionist because his daughter got in trouble for being a in class. The principal comes out and tries to defuse the situation, and a minute later, my mother comes in on her way to the staff room. It's hectic in there, and then all of a sudden, the angry dad headbutts the principal right in the face. My mother screams, and an angry dad turns and takes one step towards her. Before he got any further, I, without thinking, punched that in the face, and his nose disappeared. Police came shortly after, and I wasn't charged. It was classified as restraining with reasonable force due to him headbutting. Happy birthday, Mom. Ooh, your quick reaction to protect your mother and others present demonstrates your care and concern for their well-being. I'm sure your mom was relieved to see you there, even if the circumstances were far from ideal. It's nice to know that you weren't charged and that the situation was resolved by the police. And I hope your mom's birthday celebration was able to continue on a happier note after that. Story 8. Our vice principal is a former Army sergeant who's built like a tank. He's well-liked and an amazing role model in a community where many of our kids don't have good male role models. On several occasions, I've seen mothers step well over the line and make very comments to him directly in front of their kids. I mean, in plain sight of their own children, and in ways the kids notice. He's always very respectful and often asks another staff member to join him if he sees one of these parents coming to talk. But it's pretty damn trashy when it comes to some of the innuendos I've overheard. These aren't jokes either. They try to get handsy with him too. Story 9. I'm a high school teacher. One time, a parent of a child who had been going back and forth with another child on social media came to the school to confront the other girl. The mom ended up bursting into my classroom to try to fight one of my 9th grade girls, sending us into a lockdown until the woman was removed by the police. Edit. I want to make clear that the systems in place have failed this woman, her family, and her friends at basically every level. And I can understand why she felt like she didn't trust any systems to handle the situation. The fact that many comments went straight to talking about race is disappointing. By the end of the school year, this particular mother was helping chaperone events and was a good role model for our young people. Her daughter was one of the best performing students in the grade. So although this particular event was traumatizing for a lot of people, let's not use it to justify any kind of racism or generalizations. Reply 1. There was an incident at the school one of my buddies went to where a black kid and a redneck got into a fight. The redneck lost. The next day, the kid's parents and his uncles took bats to school and started attacking random black kids they saw. It ended with a whole lot of cops showing up. Story 10. I work in a school in one of the most socially deprived areas of the UK. At Parents' Evening, we give every parent a printout of their child's grades in each subject, alongside their target grades. Last year, we had a parent of an 11-year-old respond to this printout by shouting, "What the f*** am I going to do with this? I can't read, can I?" This was in front of other children, parents, and her child's teachers. Edit. After only 1 year in this school, there's actually a pretty long list of things I've seen parents do, or have heard other staff members claim to have seen parents do. Edit 2. The school is in the Midlands. I don't want to be any more specific just in case anyone figures out which school it is. And just to be clear, I'm not making fun of her. A quick laugh behind closed doors at things like this seems to give a bit of levity for teachers in schools like mine. It can be tough, but I think the majority of people who work in these areas do it because they want to help conquer some of the social inequalities or issues that people are facing. Whether that's for pure humanistic beliefs, their own ego, or just because it feels like they're accomplishing something. Maybe a bit of each. Regardless, I feel sympathy for the woman in question and her daughter. One of the aims of my job is to help prevent people from reaching adulthood without the necessary skills to thrive. Her behavior doesn't change that, and doesn't make me assume I'm a higher class of person than she is, just dealt a different hand, I guess. Story 11. I have 2. There is a parent who would walk through our closed campus every single day. As teachers, we are supposed to stop her because it's a closed campus. Every single day, she would pretend she didn't know the rules, and we always knew it was the same parent because she let her younger children who weren't in school yet ride around on their scooters ahead of her. One day, she was walking through with a stroller. She was not paying attention, and her freaking baby started falling out of the front of the stroller. I saw 4 teachers jump up to help the kid, and the mom didn't even acknowledge. The other one happened directly to me during parent-teacher conferences. I was meeting with a mom who lives with her boyfriend about her son. At the end of the conference, I asked if they had any questions I could answer for them, and he started asking me personal questions and flirting with me. I deflected and told them I had more conferences, but other teachers have told me that parents have hit on them before, so it's probably pretty common. Story 12. Not a teacher, but a college administrator. Parents will call in very frequently when there is an issue with their student's living situation. If they're an which is frequently the case, I quote FERPA to them. Best example, I had to bill a student for around $600 in damages to their room at the end of the year. Mom called me pissed off about this because they had tried to repair the damages poorly. She ended up yelling about this over the phone, and I reminded her that her son was 22 years old and that I could only talk with him about this. The kid calls me back the next day and apologizes for his mom being a bitch to me and asks if I'm able to just bullshit his mom when she calls back. It's a weird line of work. Yeah, sounds like working as a college administrator can be quite challenging, especially when dealing with difficult parents. It's great that you were able to handle the situation professionally by adhering to FERPA guidelines and ensuring that you communicated directly with the student, who was of legal age. Story 13. My kid went to a preschool run by the public school system. One day I saw one of his classmates, every student was either 3 or 4, moms open the front passenger door. The kid climbed in, and they drove off with the radio cranked and the little girl dancing on the seat, leaning against the dashboard. The back seat was totally empty, not even a car seat. The next day, I offered the lady my other kid's seat. I'd buy another one on the way home. She told me to fuck off and drove away with her daughter again, standing in the front seat. I let the principal know, and we watched the car drive off into traffic toward the highway. On day 3, I called the police, but they'll only come out of my call during the pickup. Great, that'll only take 30 minutes for them to do. After mom drives off with daughter dancing on the seat again, I tell the principal I'm reporting the mom to family services if she won't intervene. On day 4, a guy shows up in her car and comes nose to nose with me, without even so much as an introduction. He says if I keep harassing his woman, I'll regret it. I tell the principal, nothing she can do. They stopped bringing the kid to school after that. Story 14. Not a parent, but we had a babysitter who would roll up about 2 feet from the curb in her ancient, dented to shit gold van, have a preteen in the back, slide the door open, and then scream, "Get in!" at the tiny 5-year-old she was picking up. The poor girl started crying every time. Story 15. I had a kid whose aunt was his legal guardian. I told her that he was acting up in class and not doing work, so she threatened to put him back into foster care if he didn't pull his shit together. Story 16. Parents witness an event, not a teacher. My kid's very first day of school. She's 4 and a half. In the gym hall, all the kids and parents are in line according to class, and one by one the teachers come and take them away. Our group was last to go. As we are waiting, a guy storms in, clearly drunk, starts shouting at a woman in the line, "Why the f*** didn't you tell me it was now? I've been looking everywhere!" And eventually he slapped her. Another dad in the line pulls the drunk dad away and pushes him when he falls down on top of another kid. That kid's mom screams. The drunk starts to run out, and the squished kid's dad chases him. He made it out of the gym, but then got caught and the shit kicked out of him, and out of the school reception. Everyone is freaked out. Kids are crying. Then the very happy teacher, who is completely unaware, comes in. I started Googling prices for private schools. Story 17. There's a rule in our Catholic school about parking in the upper lot nearest the door. It is drop-off only. If you need to go to the building, you must park in the lower part of the lot. Mind you, the lot is only about as deep as half a city block, so it's not like a huge hike. Anyway, a father parked in the drop-off zone, and when he comes out, a very pregnant mom confronts him, saying he can't park there. He says, "Don't worry, I'm leaving." She then proceeds to threaten to get her baseball bat out of the car and beat him, which was a pure class. Second to this was the horrible stepmom that made her stepson kneel before her in the hallway and apologize for some imagined wrong. Yeah, his social worker heard about that one. Story 18. It was our yearly talent show that we put on just for the parents. Each class in the grade is to perform a musical number. And once, one student was so excited because parents could take their kids home after the talent show. He talked about it for days ahead of time, about how he and his mom were going to spend time together and how much fun he was going to have. Day off the talent show arrived. This was going to be my second time meeting his mom. He took the bus to and from school, and she never came to appointments for her at the school. She was sitting there on her phone playing a game during the whole performance. The student ran up to her afterward for a hug. She gave him a half pat and walked away from him. Then came up to me and his other teachers and said, "He can stay the rest of the day, right?" Guys, this poor little kid's heart shattered. He started crying, got in front of his mom, reached up his arm, and started begging for him to go home and be with her. She didn't even look like she heard him and continued to talk about how she wanted the whole day for herself and her new boyfriend. She pushed away her son and walked away without saying goodbye. The worst part? He was the only one in class left. We had to combine with a couple of younger kids and ended up watching a movie because we so desperately wanted to cheer him up. I found out the next year that they had lost their home and were living in multiple couches or their car and basically living in truck stops. And then contact was lost with them. We reported his situation several times, but his mom was slippery and was never found. Just thinking about him, my heart still breaks. Story 19. Not a teacher anymore, but an RN. Kid wakes up from dental surgery. A 4-year-old who needed a root canal, several extractions, and fillings. Horrible dentition. Mom, dad, nowhere to be found post-op. Eventually they came and picked up their kid, reeking of cigarettes and booze. Then Mom proceeded to give the 4-year-old boy a baby bottle of Mountain Dew. The pediatric dentist took the parents aside into a consult room and yelled at/lectured them. They told him to mind his own business, scooped up the kid, and walked out. Saddest part was I remember the poor kiddo had filthy feet and hair, also reeked of cigarettes. He looked so defeated already. All I could think of was that this kid has an uphill battle for a decent life. Story 20. Not a teacher, but my dad once worked as a groundskeeper at a primary school. Worst thing he ever saw was a guy dropping his daughter off to school, and before she went through the gate, her dad went through her school bag and took out all her packed food and left eating it, essentially leaving her with nothing to eat that day. Dad was so angry, he said he wanted to knock the guy out right then and there for leaving his child with no food for the day. But he ended up going straight to the principal to tell them what he witnessed, so it could be investigated properly and get the kid help. Please leave your story down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to make a video about them in the future. And also don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, peace.